AITA for refusing to drop out to save my brother's failing business? My name is Nathan, and I am 28 years old. I grew up in a typical middle-class home in Michigan. My dad worked as a regional sales manager for an industrial supply company, and my mom was a dental hygiene assistant. We did not live in luxury, but we did not lack anything either. We had a 2-car garage, annual camping trips, and everything usually seen in a normal suburban family. My brother Tyler is 3 years younger than me, and from the moment he learned to speak, he was the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I was the boring son, got good grades, stayed out of trouble. I played baseball until I realized I would not make it to the major leagues, and then I focused on my studies. Nothing out of the ordinary, no drama, no excitement, just a boy trying to find his way. Tyler, on the other hand, had personality, meaning he was loud, charismatic, and knew exactly how to win anyone over. He always managed to get his way. Plus, every so often he would come up with some grand plan or brilliant idea, and my parents bought into it completely, as if he were the next big success story. When I came home with an excellent grade on a history test, my dad barely looked at it and nodded. But when Tyler barely passed, they celebrated it as if he had achieved something extraordinary and took him out for ice cream. I am not exaggerating. That happened several times. In high school, it was more of the same. I joined the robotics club, got good grades, and started thinking about college. Tyler did not join anything, barely passed his classes, and yet, somehow, ended up being student council president, promising better cafeteria food and longer recesses. He did not keep either promise, but everyone loved him anyway. The favoritism was more than obvious. When I needed money for college application fees, my dad made me work extra shifts at the local home improvement store, where I had already been working since my sophomore year of high school. Instead, when Tyler wanted a car for his 16th birthday, my parents bought him a used Honda Civic with money they supposedly had saved for emergencies. I pointed out that double standard once during dinner. My mom's response was, "You are more independent. Tyler needs more support to reach his potential." Yeah, right, his potential. I worked all through high school, saved every dollar I could, and applied to the University of Michigan. I was accepted into the engineering program with a partial academic scholarship that covered about 40% of the tuition. I paid the rest with student loans and the savings from 2 years of working at the local home improvement store. My parents contributed absolutely nothing to my college education, not because they could not afford it, but because they were supposedly teaching me responsibility. Meanwhile, they were already talking about how they would help Tyler with his future plans when he graduated from high school. The University of Michigan was hard, but I loved it. For the first time in my life, I felt I was building something that was truly mine. I took a full course load every semester. I worked part-time at the campus recreation center and spent many weekends studying instead of going to parties. During my freshman year, I lived in the cheapest dorm on campus. My sophomore year, I got a room in a house with 3 other engineering students as focused as I was. We quizzed each other on thermodynamics while eating cheap instant potatoes and sharing the most affordable pizza we could find. The major was brutal. Engineering is not like other majors where you can get by on natural talent alone. You either put in the real hours or you fail. I saw many students drop out or change majors because they could not handle the workload, but I kept going. Every passed exam and every finished project felt like proof that I was building a future where I would never have to ask my parents for anything. Tyler graduated from high school the summer before my junior year of college. He barely made it. To be honest, he had a 2.3 grade point average and no real plan beyond, "I will see what I do." That fall, while I was taking advanced fluid dynamics and working 20 hours a week at the rec center, Tyler enrolled in a community college. He lasted exactly 1 semester before dropping out because the classes were, according to him, killing his creativity. Yeah, right, his creativity. The guy could not write a coherent paragraph or solve basic algebra, but of course it was the education system's fault for repressing such a genius. After dropping out, Tyler returned home and started what he called his entrepreneurial journey. That mainly consisted of sleeping until noon, watching motivational business videos on YouTube, and posting inspirational quotes on social media about effort and dedication. My parents supported him completely. My dad would come home from his real job, see Tyler lying on the couch with his laptop, and say things like, "Good to see you working hard on your dreams, son." The kid was literally watching someone else talk about working hard while he contributed absolutely nothing to the household. Meanwhile, I was working extremely hard to maintain a 3.7 grade point average while covering my expenses. I would go home during breaks and see Tyler lounging around as if he were on a permanent vacation. It was extremely hard not to lose my composure. Family dinners during those visits were tough. My dad would ask me about college. I would tell him about a project or a particularly difficult exam, and he would nod politely before turning to Tyler to ask him about his businesses. Then, Tyler would start with endless explanations about his latest idea. One month, it was a men's grooming subscription box. The next, an app that would revolutionize how people found local contractors. Then a consultancy to help other entrepreneurs improve their branding. None of those ideas ever went beyond mere words, but my parents listened fascinated to every single one, as if he were pitching to millionaire investors and not sitting in the room where he grew up. The real problem started in the spring of my junior year. I was only 1 year away from graduating. My grades were solid, and I had already started looking for entry-level engineering positions. I could see the finish line getting closer. Then, my dad called me on a Tuesday night. I was in my room studying for a materials engineering exam when the phone rang. I thought it would be a routine call to see how I was doing. "Nathan, we need to talk about something important," he started. From that moment, I knew I was not going to like what was coming. Tyler has a real opportunity on his hands. He has been working on a business plan and has interested investors, but he needs seed capital to really get things off the ground. I did not answer right away, waiting for the real request to drop. "We have been crunching the numbers, and we think the best option would be for you to take a year off from college, come back home, get a full-time job, and help contribute to Tyler's business fund. It is only temporary, and it would mean the world to your brother." The silence on my end must have felt heavy because my dad kept talking. "Besides, you only have 1 year left to graduate. You could always go back later and finish, but Tyler's window of opportunity is now. You understand how important timing is in business, right?" I understood perfectly well that they wanted me to throw 3 years of hard work down the drain, go deeper into debt by deferring my loans, and fund whatever nonsense Tyler had invented this time. "What is the business?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "It is a platform that connects freelance creatives with small businesses, something revolutionary. Tyler has been developing it for months." "Has he built anything, any real product or service?" "Well, not yet. That is what the funding is for, to hire developers and designers. So, all Tyler has is an idea for an app. He has no technical skills to develop it himself, no funding, and no real business experience. And you want me to drop out of college to help pay for that?" "It is not dropping out. It is taking a strategic pause. Family helps each other. That is how things work." "Does Tyler know you are asking me this?" I asked. "Actually, it was his idea. He said, 'You have always been good with money and would understand the opportunity.'" Of course it had been his idea. The guy who had never held a real job in his entire life considered it perfectly reasonable for me to abandon my studies so he could play entrepreneur. "I am not going to do it," I said calmly. "Nathan, do not be selfish. We are talking about your brother's future. I am talking about my future, the one I have spent 3 years building while working and going into debt with loans." Tyler dropped out of community college after 1 semester. Why should I trust him with my time and my money? Because he is your brother. Because family supports each other. Because sometimes you have to sacrifice for the people you love. Like you sacrificed for my education? Oh, right, you did not. I am paying for it myself. Remember all that responsibility and independence you were supposedly teaching me. My dad's voice turned cold. "We are asking for 1 year, 1 year of your life to help your brother get ahead. If you cannot do that, then I do not know what kind of man you are becoming," he told me. "The kind of man who does not throw his future away for a fantasy." After saying that, I hung up. The following days were total silence. Then my mom called, trying the guilt trip strategy. She said Tyler needed me, that he had struggled so much to find his way, and that I had always had it easier because I was smarter and more disciplined. "Really? Can you not help your younger brother just this once?" Just this once, as if it really were only once. I knew exactly how that worked. If I agreed to 1 year, then it would be 2. Then Tyler's business would fail, and somehow it would also be my fault for not believing in him enough. I gave my mom the exact same answer I gave my dad, a flat no. Then Tyler himself called. We had not spoken in quite some time, and it was the first time he reached out to me directly about this whole mess. "Hey, what is your problem?" he started, without saying hello, without asking how I was, straight to the accusation. "My problem is you expecting me to put my life on hold for your latest whim," I replied. "It is not just a whim, it is a real business opportunity. I have people interested, I have a plan, I just need capital to start. Then get a job and save that capital yourself." That is exactly what I did. It is different for me, bro. You do not understand. You are cut out for the traditional path, school, jobs, and all that. But I am different. I am an entrepreneur. I need to move now while the opportunity is hot. Sure, you are different, Tyler. You dropped out of community college because you could not handle basic business classes. What makes you think you can run a company? Because I have vision, I have drive, I have ideas that can change everything. You are too stuck in your boring life to see it. Stuck in my boring life? The life where I am about to graduate in engineering, get a good job, and have a real future. Yeah, sounds awful. Whatever, bro. When I am successful and you are still stuck in some mediocre 9-to-5 job, do not come asking me for favors. Perfect, I replied. This time he hung up on me. After that, the family messages started rolling in. My aunt texted me about how families should stick together. My uncle chimed in saying young people today did not understand loyalty. Even my grandmother called to say she was disappointed in my selfishness. Apparently, the whole family had already been briefed on Tyler's revolutionary business opportunity and my refusal to help. I had been painted as the villain holding back a future success story out of jealousy, spite, or whatever story made them feel better. No one asked for my side. No one questioned why I was being demanded to sacrifice my education. No one seemed to care that I had been supporting myself for years while Tyler lived at home rent-free. I stopped replying in the family group chat and let them think whatever they wanted. My roommate, Connor, noticed I was stressed and asked what was wrong. I gave him the short version. His response was perfect. "Your family is crazy. Ignore them." Connor had a good head on his shoulders. He was also paying his own way through college, working as a night security guard to cover his expenses. He understood that some of us did not have safety nets or family money to fall back on. "If you drop out now, you are never going back," he told me. I have seen that too many times. People take a year off, life gets in the way. Suddenly they are 30 with no degree and no prospects. Do not let your brother drag you down with him. My dad called again a few days later to offer what he called a compromise. According to his proposal, I could stay in college, but work part-time and reduce my course load so I would have time to help financially with Tyler's business. In other words, they were still asking me to sacrifice my future, just at a slower pace. My answer remained the same. No. My mom took a different route. She started sending me extremely long, emotionally loaded messages about the importance of family, blood ties, and how in tough times you should support your own without asking questions. I skimmed them and then deleted them. Tyler, for his part, wrote me an even longer message. He said I was ruining his life, destroying his dreams, and betraying him right when he needed me most. He claimed he would never forgive me for that betrayal. For a moment I was about to reply, but ultimately I realized engaging in that argument would only fuel more drama, so I did not answer at all. Time passed, and the semester finally ended. When summer break arrived, I went home thinking that after several weeks the waters would have calmed down and the atmosphere would be less tense. It was a huge mistake. I walked into a house where everyone treated me like I had committed an unforgivable sin. Tyler would not speak to me. My mom sighed like a martyr every time I walked into the room. My dad acted cold and distant, answering me in monosyllables when I tried to talk to him. The passive-aggressive attitude was so thick you could almost cut it with a knife. Tyler's supposed business was exactly where it had always been, in the idea phase. He had no clients, no product, no revenue, and nothing actually running. The only real thing was a notebook full of sketches and buzzwords, plus a domain name he had bought online. Other than that, there was absolutely nothing. Even so, he spent his days locked in his room on video calls, saying he was networking and building relationships with future partners. Translated into plain English, he was talking to other wannabe entrepreneurs who also had nothing concrete, just ideas and enthusiasm. I endured that environment for barely 3 days before finding a friend's couch to crash on for the rest of the summer. Later, I got a full-time job in construction to save money for my senior year of college and my internship. I exiled myself from my own family. It suited me fine. If they wanted to stay mad, let them. I had a future to build. Senior year was the hardest academically, but I barely had time to think about that. Besides classes, projects, and exams, I was also focused on finding a job for after graduation. I knew I was in the home stretch, and everything depended on making the most of that final year. In the fall, I started sending applications everywhere. I sent out dozens of resumes and went through interview after interview while keeping up with school. The process was exhausting. Most companies required multiple rounds, initial calls, technical tests, panel interviews, and even presentations. Many nights I would finish studying for a class and immediately start preparing for an interview the next day. I researched each company, practiced common answers, and reviewed engineering projects and concepts so I would not fail. One company even paid for me to travel to their headquarters in Ohio for a full-day interview. I met with 6 different people, toured the facilities, and presented a design project I had done. Throughout the whole process, I kept thinking about how much the flight and hotel would cost me if they did not reimburse me in the end. Luckily, they did. 2 weeks later, they sent me an offer, a starting salary of $65,000 at a manufacturing company in the southern part of the state with benefits, retirement plan contributions, and the whole package. I signed the offer letter in my engineering lab and felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had made it. Despite the family pressure, the guilt, and the accusations, I had finished my degree and secured a job on top of it. No one could take that away from me. The final semester was strange. Academically, I was already on autopilot. I had a secure job and knew I would graduate. Still, I could not fully relax. I spent a lot of my time helping Connor and my other housemates with their job searches, giving them interview tips and reviewing their resumes. Connor landed a role at an engineering consulting firm in Detroit. We celebrated by ordering good pizza for the first time instead of the cheap stuff we had survived on for 3 years. It felt good to be able to afford small luxuries without guilt. Graduation came in May. I did not expect my family to show up, and I was not wrong. They did not go. The ones who were there were Connor's parents, who made room for me to sit with them during the ceremony. When I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, Connor's mom started crying. We had maybe seen each other 3 times in our entire lives, but she still got emotional for me. After the ceremony, Connor's dad shook my hand and told me I should feel proud of everything I had accomplished. Then he added something I never forgot. Not everyone has the strength to choose their own path when family pressure tells them not to. That meant more to me than any congratulations I could have received from my own parents. In June, I moved downstate to start the job. I found a pretty decent 1-bedroom apartment in a complex where mostly young professionals lived. It was nothing fancy, but it had a dishwasher and an in-unit washer and dryer, which to me felt like winning the lottery after years of living like a student. I bought basic furniture at IKEA and spent a whole weekend putting it together by myself. There was something deeply satisfying about assembling your own furniture inside a space paid for with money you had earned yourself. Every finished piece felt like a small personal victory. I started working on a Monday in early June. The first few days of training were overwhelming. Too many new systems to learn, too many people to meet, and too many protocols to memorize. But for the first time in years, I did not have to worry about balancing work and classes or scraping together rent money. This was just work, show up, do my tasks, go home, and collect my paycheck. The engineering work itself was demanding, but also very fulfilling. I designed components for industrial machinery, conveyor belt systems, pneumatic controls, and hydraulic assemblies. They were real things that would later be manufactured, installed, and used in the real world. Not just theoretical exercises in a textbook. My boss, a man named Marcus who had been with the company for 15 years, took me under his wing during those first few months. He reviewed my blueprints, pointed out potential mistakes, and explained the reasoning behind every design decision. He did not talk down to me or treat me like I was dumb. He simply taught me that practical side of engineering that college never quite manages to show. For the first time in my life, I had financial stability. Truly, no more living off cheap food and having to choose between buying textbooks or buying groceries. I could go to the supermarket without checking how much money I had in my account first. I could save without that money being immediately destined for college tuition or rent. The first time I went grocery shopping without a strict budget, I almost had a panic attack. I spent 20 minutes in the produce section trying to convince myself that it was okay to buy fresh vegetables instead of frozen ones, which had always been the cheaper option. In the end, I bought both simply because I could afford them. It felt incredible, as if after so many years of surviving on the edge, things were finally starting to go right. I did not reach out to my family, and they did not reach out to me either. It seemed perfect to me. I was building a life of my own, far away from all that chaos. 6 months after starting the job, I received a message from Tyler on LinkedIn. Apparently, since I had graduated, he had already tried launching 3 different businesses, and all 3 had failed within weeks. The first was that platform to connect freelance creatives with small businesses, the same idea he had sold to my parents years ago. He paid someone on Fiverr to build him a basic website, but he never figured out how to attract clients or users. The platform went live with 0 registered people and stayed that way until he let the domain expire. The second attempt was a dropshipping business selling phone accessories. He had watched YouTube videos about passive income and decided that would be his golden ticket. The project lasted about 3 weeks until he discovered that you actually had to run ads, handle customer service, and process returns. The few reviews he got were terrible. The third was a supposed social media consultancy where he claimed to help local businesses improve their online presence. He only got 1 client, a local pizzeria. They fired him after 2 weeks when they realized he was just posting random memes and did not even know how to explain what ROI meant, that is, return on investment. The LinkedIn message was long, confusing, and beat around the bush, but the main idea was simple. He needed money for his new project and wanted to know if I would be willing to invest in his startup. He also sent me a pitch deck that looked like it was made in PowerPoint by someone who had never used PowerPoint. The slides were cringeworthy, empty buzzwords like disruption, synergy, and paradigm shift, charts with no real data, a timeline where he became a millionaire in 18 months, and a budget asking for $50,000 in seed capital without explaining where a single cent would go. I did not reply. 2 weeks later, my dad called. I let the call go to voicemail. The message was exactly what I expected. Tyler was going through a tough time. He needed support and wanted to know if I could lend him a few $1,000s to help him out. According to him, it would mean the world to my brother. A few $1,000s. For what? For another business idea doomed to fail? For another great opportunity that would vanish in a matter of weeks? I deleted the message without finishing it. Over the next year, the requests kept coming sporadically. Sometimes they came directly from Tyler, other times from my parents, and occasionally from relatives who seemed to have been recruited to insist on the same thing. The amounts varied, $5,000, $10,000, even $20,000 once. But the request was always the same. Give Tyler money so he could keep playing entrepreneur. I did not answer any of them. I blocked Tyler on LinkedIn when he started messaging me every week. I also set my parents' numbers to go straight to voicemail. In essence, I built a wall between their drama and my peace of mind. My second year on the job came with a promotion. I had started as a project engineer and now I was a senior project engineer, leading a small team of 3 engineers and making $80,000 a year, a figure that seemed unreal to me compared to what my budget had been during college. The promotion was the result of successfully leading a redesign project for one of our main clients. They were having efficiency issues on their assembly line and I identified the bottleneck, designed a solution, and implemented it under budget and ahead of the deadline. The client was thrilled, my boss was impressed, and just like that I had a new title and a pay raise. Managing other people turned out to be very different from working on my own. It was no longer just about doing my job well, but organizing others, assigning tasks, and making sure everything turned out correctly. I had to learn how to delegate, how to review others' work without sounding condescending, and how to balance technical perfection with real-world deadlines. Marcus was key during those early months of leadership, sharing lessons with me that he had learned throughout his 15 years of experience. And honestly, I enjoyed it. There was something deeply satisfying about helping younger engineers avoid mistakes I had made myself, and seeing a project take shape because I had known how to coordinate the right people at the right time. I also bought a used but reliable car to replace the old sedan I had been driving since college. Nothing fancy, a 4-year-old Honda Accord with good mileage, but it was mine, paid for in cash, and for the first time without strange noises every time I started it. I started being more disciplined with my money. I increased my contributions to my 401k and opened a tax-advantaged long-term savings account, where I started depositing the maximum allowed each year. Additionally, I set up automatic transfers to my savings account, so a portion of my paycheck was saved without having to think about it. Over time, I managed to build an emergency fund for unforeseen events. For the first time, I was no longer living paycheck to paycheck. I even took a vacation to Colorado. It was my first real vacation as an adult, not those obligatory visits home during the holidays. I spent a week hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park, staying in cheap hostels, eating at local restaurants, and for the first time in a long time, simply existing without thinking about work, family, or responsibilities. Connor came with me. He was also doing well at his consulting firm and needed to disconnect. We spent our days walking trails and our nights talking about our careers, laughing at how far we had come since those years when we survived by sharing cheap pizza in our college apartment. Remember when we could not even afford new socks? Connor said one night while we were drinking beer at a brewery in Boulder. When we walked everywhere because gas was too expensive. Remember when your family tried to convince you to throw all this overboard for your brother's fantasies? That comment brought the mood down a bit, but he was right. Yeah, I replied, I remember. You made the right choice, bro. Look where you are now and think about where you would be if you had listened to them. And he was right. If I had dropped out of college, I would probably be stuck in a dead-end job, watching my brother fail over and over again, while my parents blamed me for not supporting him enough. Instead, I was sitting there in a brewery in Colorado after a week of hiking, with a good job, real savings, and a future I had built on my own. Life was finally going well. Then I received a Facebook message from my aunt. Tyler had moved back home after his third failed business attempt in less than 2 years. He was broke, depressed, and completely lost, not knowing what to do with his life. The family was worried about him. Apparently, after his social media consultancy failed, he had tried launching a YouTube channel about entrepreneurship. The irony was obvious, giving business advice without ever having built a successful one. The channel barely lasted 6 episodes before being abandoned, and each video had fewer views than the last. His most viewed video barely reached 47 views. 47. And I am pretty sure at least half of them were family members. After YouTube, he tried to reinvent himself as a life coach. He even had business cards printed that read, Tyler, Life Optimization Specialist. As far as I could tell, his only credentials were having opinions and access to a printer. He got exactly 0 clients. He really needs his older brother right now, my aunt wrote. Maybe you could talk to him, give him some guidance. The audacity was astounding. They spent years treating me like the villain for refusing to fund his fantasies, and now they wanted me to clean up the mess they themselves had allowed. I did not reply to that either. Through mutual acquaintances, I kept hearing about what was going on with Tyler. At some point, he got a job at a car dealership, but it barely lasted 2 months before he quit because, according to him, he did not believe in traditional employment. As if traditional employment was not, for most people, the way to pay for rent and food. Then he moved in with some friends he had met at a professional networking event. They were other aspiring entrepreneurs who spent more time talking about success than working to achieve it. They even had a group chat called Future Millionaires, where they shared motivational quotes and business ideas that never amounted to anything. Tyler could not pay his share of the rent after the first month. His roommates, though also dreamers, at least had enough practical sense to recognize someone who contributed nothing. They kicked him out after 3 months. Then he tried to set up a social media marketing agency. The problem was obvious. He did not know how to do marketing, not even to promote himself. The website he created looked like it was from 2005, and his social media presence was a mess of inconsistent posts with interactions that rarely exceeded a few dozen. An acquaintance told me that Tyler approached him asking for an investment for this supposed agency. When asked what services he offered exactly, he did not know how to answer. He just repeated empty phrases like, I help brands optimize their digital presence, without being able to explain what that meant in practice. The pattern was more than obvious. My brother had spent his entire adult life avoiding real work and responsibility, and my parents had enabled him at every stage. Now reality was finally catching up with them, and yet they still seemed surprised that nothing had worked out. Meanwhile, my life kept moving forward. In my third year at the company, I got another promotion. I was already making $92,000 a year and had been assigned to lead a major project for a new client. My boss saw me as a rising star within the company, the same promise my own family had labeled for years as selfish. In my fourth year came what I can only describe as an attempted intervention. One Friday, coming home from work, I found my parents sitting in the lobby of my building. Seeing them, there was jarring, almost surreal, as if characters from a past stage of my life had suddenly appeared without warning. How they got my address, I do not know. Maybe they found it in some public record or by asking mutual acquaintances. I even considered the possibility that they had paid to get it. By that point, nothing would have surprised me. My dad stood up as soon as he saw me, adjusting his jacket with that gesture he uses when he tries to assert himself. "Nathan, we need to talk." "I do not think that is necessary," I replied, trying to keep walking toward the elevator. My mom grabbed my arm with unexpected strength. Her expression was urgent, almost desperate. "Please, give us 10 minutes. Just that." Against my better judgment and everything telling me to keep walking, I agreed and let them into my apartment. They sat on the couch somewhat uncomfortably, looking around as if they were in a stranger's house, which, deep down, was not that far from the truth. We had not spoken in years. They had never seen where I lived, nor had they been part of this stage of my life. To them, I was probably still the student they tried to convince to drop out of college. The apartment, however, spoke for itself. Over time, I had replaced the basic furniture, added decorations, bought a nice TV, and turned that space into a real home. It was obvious I was doing well, and I could see that realization reflected on their faces. My dad scanned the living room, the furniture, the TV, the equipped kitchen. His expression wavered between something resembling pride and something much closer to resentment. "You have done well," he finally said, but he did not say it as a real compliment. It sounded more like an obligation, as if it pained him to truly acknowledge it. "Yes," I replied. "I have." My mom was already crying even before he started talking. My dad then launched into a speech that clearly sounded rehearsed. He talked about mistakes, how they understood why I was upset, and how they wanted to fix things. They were correct phrases, well spoken, but empty, as if he had rehearsed them before arriving. But the tone was completely wrong. It did not sound like a sincere apology, but rather the kind of apology used to smooth things over and then ask for something in return. I had heard that same tone from him before, many times when dealing with difficult clients at his job. And then he got to the real reason for the visit. "Tyler is in trouble, Nathan. Real trouble. He is in debt. He is depressed. He needs help to get ahead. We have done everything we could, but you are out of money," I interrupted him. He at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "We have supported him as much as we could, but now he needs more than we can give him." "And you want me to give him money?" I asked directly. "We want you to give him a chance. Maybe you could help him get a job at your company. By now you must have contacts. You are doing well. You are respected in your field. A recommendation from you could change everything. He just needs a fresh start, and you can give it to him." I laughed. Really, I laughed out loud. A dry, bitter sound, completely out of place in the quiet of my living room. "You want me to use my professional reputation to get Tyler a job? The same Tyler who has never kept a job for more than 2 months? The same one who thinks he is above traditional work? You want me to recommend him at my company?" "He has changed," my mom insisted, wiping her tears with a tissue. "He has learned his lesson. He just needs an opportunity to prove it. Just one. He has had nothing but opportunities. You gave him a car, let him live rent-free, and gave him all the time in the world to find his way while I paid for my college with loans and part-time jobs. And he wasted all of them, every single one. He is your brother," my mom said, as if that were enough. Yes. And where was my brother when I graduated? Where was he when I got my first real job? Where was he for any of the important moments in my life? Oh, right, at home, planning another idea that would never amount to anything. They had no answer. The silence that followed was uncomfortable, heavy. My dad changed his strategy, leaning forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "We know we were not there for you like we should have been. We can admit that now. We made mistakes in the way we treated you, but you still succeeded. You triumphed even without our support. You are strong enough that you did not need us. That is your justification, I replied. I survived your neglect. So to you, everything was fine. That is not what I am saying, my dad backpedaled. What I am trying to say is that Tyler is not like you. He does not have your discipline or your ability to succeed on his own. He needs help in a way you never did. No, I replied calmly. Tyler needs to grow up, and you need to stop treating him like he is incapable of fending for himself, like someone has to guide him every step of the way. If you are not willing to help your brother, then we have nothing more to talk about, my dad said, standing up. Sounds perfect to me, I told them. They left. But before walking out, my dad stopped for a second at the door and shot me a harsh, reproachful look, as if I were the one failing, as if I had just rejected something that in his mind was an obligation. Before, those kinds of gestures would have made me doubt. They were the kind of pressure they used when I was younger, but not anymore at this point. It did not affect me in the slightest. I sat on the couch for a long time after they left, with that strange mix of anger and relief. Anger because they had shown up at my home only to ask for more. Relief because once again I did not cave. I texted Connor. My parents came over. They wanted me to get Tyler a job at my company. His reply came almost instantly. Please tell me you told them no. More or less, I replied, laughing. Well done, he texted back. Years 5 and 6 brought nothing new. From time to time, messages would arrive from relatives saying I was cruel for not helping Tyler. I also kept hearing through acquaintances about his constant failures. And there was never a shortage of insinuations that if I had supported him since college, everything would have been different. The version they told was almost admirable in its distortion. I was the selfish brother who had abandoned his family out of ambition, and Tyler was the misunderstood dreamer the world failed to appreciate. No one wanted to admit the obvious. Tyler had been spoiled, overprotected, and in the process, set up to fail. My parents never knew how to differentiate between supporting a child and making him dependent. I am now 28 years old. I make $115,000 a year as a senior project engineer. I bought my first house. I got engaged to a woman I met at a work conference, and for the first time I can say I am genuinely happy. My family still calls me selfish. Occasionally they still send messages asking if I could not help Tyler, lend him money, recommend him, or give him another chance. I do not reply to any of them. Last month, I ran into an old neighbor at the supermarket. She asked about my family, and I gave her the vague answer I have perfected over the years. Everyone is doing their own thing. Oh, I heard your brother has not been doing too well, she said, tilting her head with that pitying look people get. So sad when young people cannot find their way. Yes, a shame, I replied. What I really meant was that Tyler's situation had nothing to do with bad luck or circumstances, but with years of bad decisions and a family that never forced him to take responsibility, and that ultimately, choosing my own path, even if they called me selfish, was the best decision I could have made. The woman I am engaged to knows the whole story. She has only seen my family once, quite a while ago at her insistence, and that experience was enough for her to perfectly understand why I keep my distance. During dinner, Tyler spent over an hour explaining his latest business idea to her, something about sustainable fashion and direct-to-consumer sales. My parents listened to him, but no longer with the same fascination as before. They nodded, followed the conversation, although it was obvious they did not entirely buy it anymore. Still, they remained focused on him, completely oblivious to the rest of the table. On the way home, she told me, I get it now. Your brother is not just a failure. He is trapped in his own delusions. And your parents made him that way. Yes, I replied. And they wanted me to sacrifice my education to fund that fantasy. That is insane. We never visited them again. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had said yes during my junior year of college, if I had dropped out, gotten a job, and put my money toward Tyler's project. Everything would have failed. I know that with absolute certainty. Whatever business he had tried would have collapsed within months, and I would have been left with nothing, no degree, more debt, and a brother blaming me for not believing in him enough. I would probably still be working full-time in construction, watching my college classmates advance in their careers while I remained stuck. The last I heard about my family was some time later, through people close to us. Apparently, my parents finally sat down with Tyler and had a serious talk with him. For the first time, they made it clear that he had to start fending for himself and that he needed to move into an apartment to become independent. As initial support, they offered to help him with rent, but only partially. They would cover a portion and he would have to take care of the rest, whether by working or finding some real way to generate income. Tyler did not take it well. He complained, argued, and tried to change their minds as he always had, but this time my parents stood firm. Even so, it was noticeable that they were still clinging to the hope that at some point he would manage to get ahead. From what I was told, the situation has not changed much. Tyler lives on his own, but without managing to support himself. He has not landed a stable job, nor has he materialized any of his businesses. They were supposed to split the rent, but my parents have ended up covering most of it, and sometimes all of it, because he cannot support himself. And still, Tyler spends a lot of his time complaining. He says they do not believe in him, that they do not see his potential, that they do not support him like they should. My parents, although they tried to set boundaries, ultimately keep giving in. Why? Because he is their son. I guess it all comes down to that, to the choices you make and how you raise someone. Everything has consequences. I, on the other hand, moved on with my life, focused on the people who are worth it and on what truly matters to me. Comment. This one really stayed with me. Standing up for your own future isn't selfish, even when others call it that. Setting healthy boundaries with family can be one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Taking responsibility for your dreams shows true strength and self-respect. You can love your family deeply while still choosing your own peace. Be kind to others, but never forget to show that same kindness to yourself. Healing often starts the moment we release the guilt of saying no. I hope this reminds you that your well-being and future truly matter. You don't have to carry everyone else's expectations forever. Keep building the life you deserve with quiet confidence and self-respect. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.